I would really like to now welcome Larry Paska, who is the Executive Director of NCSS. And for those of you who have not attended um, a National Conference of Social Science event, I would strongly recommend it. We have attended and presented the last couple of years and are looking forward to doing so in DC this year. Dr. Paska is an experienced manager, facilitator, and presenter whose professional vision is anchored in collaborative leadership and constructivist teaching. We have that same bent. I don't know what it is about all these people in education who happen to think that that might be the right way to do it. Since his humble beginnings as a middle school social studies teacher, he has taught social studies education methods at the university level and holds permanent 7 through 12 social studies education and school district administrator certificates in New York State. With NCSS Within the NCSS community, Paska has served as the 2015-2016 president of the New York State Council for Social Studies, represent, we're in upstate New York, and received their Distinguished Social Studies Service Award in 2017. He also served as the House of Delegates chair of the Resolutions Committee and has been a member of 3 associated groups, college and university faculty, Council of State Social Studies Specialists, and the National Social Studies Supervisor Association. Welcome. And thank you so much, Larry, for agreeing to be our closing keynote tonight. I hope you have been able to follow at least some of the presentations. We've had almost 1,200 social studies educators on throughout the day, which is just amazing given the difficult times that we're all living in. And as we've said before, the presentations will be available as recordings, and we're going to be giving professional development credit for people who participated today. So welcome, Larry.
Thank you very much, Tori. Thank you so much for having me. It's a pleasure to be with you tonight. I think this is my first virtual keynote presentation, so I'm excited to share that with you all. And first of all, I'm just very grateful that you're all together talking about the possibilities and potential of virtual social studies, of how you move social studies education into a robust virtual space. So I just want to share with you some kind of closing thoughts and where I hope we could see the field of social studies education move. And look forward to your participation in that. And so I'm just going to share my screen with you. Hopefully you can see my slide deck okay. What I want to just kind of share tonight are just some closing reflections, not just on where I know you've been all day, but also thinking about where we can move our profession, especially during this time. So we're given kind of a very historic opportunity to really think about how we not just transition social studies teaching and learning in virtual spaces, but how we can structure those spaces to be equitable for all learners, that we can provide engaging and stimulating inquiry. And one of the things that we've done at NCSS over the years is we've worked to try to not just define social studies, but try to make the social studies be visible, be evident in everyday teaching and learning. So this is how we've defined social studies historically. We've looked at it as the integrated study of the social sciences and humanities to promote civic competence. And we really see the social studies as everything about the human-made world, all of the questions that we ask about the human-made world. And we know that we need multiple disciplines to answer those questions. We rely on anthropology, psychology, sociology, geography, economics. I never want to leave one out, but we realize that we draw upon so many disciplines to answer critical questions about the world around us. And those questions are rooted in so many different areas of professional practice and just our everyday lives. When we're looking at healthcare, at crime, at foreign policy, at all disciplines, really, they're grounded in asking questions about our human world. So over the past few years at NCSS, we've been trying to figure out how do we help make this definition of social studies come alive to a generation that is looking increasingly at interconnected work through technology, that's looking at digital spaces for teaching and learning, and how to help students not just be connectors and networkers in the physical world, but also in robust online spaces. So I started at NCSS in 2016, and it was right when our board of directors had looked at a new vision for NCSS and its strategic priorities around 5 key areas. And so I share these with you tonight to hopefully help stimulate and kind of coordinate the learning that you've done today and think about what exactly is social studies? What are the priorities of being a social educator? So these are the strategic priorities of our strategic plan, but I invite you to think of them as what we ultimately have social studies for. When students are prepared for college, career, and civic life, we are teachers of collaboration. We prepare them to be collaborators. When we prepare students for college, career, and civic life, we are communicators, and we teach our students to be communicators and the importance of communication. When we prepare kids for college, career, and civic life, we are innovators. We are preparing our students to be innovators, and we innovate ourselves. When we prepare students for college, career, and civic life, we foster a sense of inclusiveness. We teach our students to be inclusive, to be representative of all voices, all ideas. When we teach students to be prepared for college, career, and civic life, we are preparing our students to be influencers and leaders. And so we teach and model influence and leadership ourselves. So I invite you tonight to leave the Unconference and return and think about how the work you do and how the work of virtual social studies is in fact preparing students for college, career, and civic life by preparing kids to be collaborators, communicators, innovators, inclusive individuals, inclusive participants in civic life, and influencers and leaders. We ground these 5 strategic priorities in a new vision, and this is a vision for our organization that we share with you because we at NCSS see a world in which all students are educated and inspired for lifelong inquiry and informed civic action. So all that you've experienced today can lead us forward to helping our students to not just think about the questions that they ask about the world around them and have a lifelong love of asking and answering questions, but they do so using the tools and resources and spaces that you create and provide for them. And the outcome of that is they are informed and ready to be civic actors, ready to engage in an active civic life. Now, I know you've been talking a bit today about how the C3 framework and its focus on preparing all students for college, career, and civic life is a critical element of social studies instruction. And so that inquiry arc is grounded on questions that you develop and how you plan and structure inquiries. So I hope that all the resources you've seen today help develop that desire to help kids structure questions and think about the inquiries that they'll ask in the world around them. As we develop questions and we plan our own inquiries, we apply different disciplinary tools from each of the disciplines. And I share this dimension because this is sometimes hard. It's hard to think of a really good inquiry question and then wonder, how do different disciplines approach that question? I think that's the heart of when we talk about social studies inquiry. We're thinking about, how is it that this question that I'm asking has an answer in history, but also an answer in geography? How do I help answer that question using economic reasoning and civic reasoning together? And so as you are using the resources that you've seen today and you're thinking about how they could work in your classroom and how you create a robust space online, think about how the inquiry questions you're asking are not grounded in any one discipline, but are alive, active, and require multiple disciplines to answer. Evaluating sources and using evidence is how we go about applying disciplinary tools to ask our questions or to answer our questions. And because today you've been shared and have worked with a number of different digital sources and resources, think about how those together can help you structure and answer questions in the different disciplines of history, geography, economics, civics, and many more. The last dimension of the C3 framework I want to share, because this is the dimension that we often see sometimes can be the hardest to implement, and that is how I help students to communicate conclusions and take informed action. And now more than ever, especially as we're transitioning much of teaching and learning online and thinking about how we can structure more permanent spaces for online social studies instruction, this is a really important dimension. How do I ensure that when our students, when our students in our classes are completing a social studies project, working with one of your resources, using it as part of their structured inquiry, that the conclusions they're drawing can be shared in a robust manner, that they can be interactive, perhaps maybe peer-to-peer, collaborative. And how do we ensure that students not just have an answer to the question, but know what to do with that answer that they have asked, the answer that they have solved? So how do we take informed action? What does that exactly mean? What are some different ways that we can encourage students to be active in civic engagement? So I just refresh you with the C3 inquiry arc to say that this is the frame that we see social studies inquiry working well in. We encourage each of you, as you go back and work with the resources that you've seen today, to think about how this inquiry arc can help you to structure meaningful learning online through the resources that we've experienced today. So what's our future in social studies? Well, right now at NCSS, we're understanding right now the need more than ever is digital content and instructional resources that are high quality. So we encourage you to work with resources that are aligned to standards such as our curriculum standards for social studies. Of course, your state and district social studies standards, the C3 framework. But we know that the future of social studies is moving into how we create and support more digital content and more online instructional resources. We're also very aware that online networking through various groups, both membership groups within NCSS, as well as groups of educators that are working across social media, across different platforms, across districts and states, this is a very critical key for our future. So just as our strategic priorities showed earlier, collaboration and communication are vital for the future of our discipline. And professional learning programs like this one today that exist in virtual spaces that are easily accessible to educators nationwide and worldwide. We know that more programs that exist virtually, although they don't always replace the face-to-face component that we have in professional development, they do exist to be really critical, especially to model some of the methods of online instruction. One resource that I'll share with you is our association made a position statement about 1.5 years ago called Youth Social Media and Digital Civic Engagement. And this is a position of our association. And as you read the 4 recommendations, I've underlined and highlighted what I thought were the key phrases in each. Each of these key phrases speaks to the importance of facilitated online communication, online networking, online sharing. The future of social studies, we think, is a future that's very much built again on collaboration, communication, innovation, inclusiveness, and influence and leadership. And those 5 priorities come alive when students and educators have the opportunities both together as teachers and students, as well as separately as students and separately as teachers, to have peer-to-peer networks and engaging online networks. So of the 4 recommendations, the first is to ensure that teachers have their own facilitated peer-to-peer spaces to work, to share best practice, conferences like this one and other groups. That students have the same opportunity for online network spaces that provide both formal and informal learning experiences. Other recommendations are that we don't just use online networking spaces to create and share content and knowledge about issues such as social justice issues, civil rights, human rights, other areas where students can be encouraged to take informed action, but that students are also given the opportunity to thoughtfully and purposefully act on what they're learning. So in other words, the network space doesn't exist just to share really good content or to assess a really good lesson, but it gives opportunities for students to actually participate meaningfully and draw their own approaches to taking informed action on an issue, topic, or a question of inquiry. And the last recommendation is that we do explore the social norms that are ever evolving in online network spaces, that it's important to engage students in a discussion and real action around how our very communications online are evolving, and for students to be able to see that they are the creators of new ways of communicating through our online spaces. And that if a norm is evolving, they are going to be a very active part of its evolution. So although, of course, we always have to be mindful of privacy and security settings and controls, we have to make sure that students are provided with a safe space to work online. it's important that students understand the evolving nature of our online communications and have ways to demonstrate inquiry and informed action through them. So as educators, one of your hopefully robust social networks might be your professional associations. So groups like NCSS and others that you may be a part of and enjoy resources from. We like to call ourselves the original social networks. NCSS itself is turning 100 years young in the coming year. So as we are approaching our second century, we look back and see 100 years of bringing educators together and bringing solutions for educators to help their students. And so we continue that proud tradition, and many organizations, professional associations around the country exist to provide these levels of support for you. So hopefully you'll turn to us as associations and other groups to network, to share best practice, and to engage in a continued discussion of what a movement to virtual social studies looks like. But there are also some solutions you can take immediately in your community that we encourage you to think about. We know that it can sometimes be hard to see social studies structured within the school day in a way that provides for in-depth inquiry. We know that there's a lot of competition for class time, and especially now online, there's especially a restricted amount of class time that often can be offered. So a few things that we offer to you as you start to engage your community in thinking about the possibilities for virtual social studies. The first, do this. Engage others in your community. The social networks and the ways that you're communicating now with members of your immediate school community, or perhaps your local or regional area, or perhaps even within your state groups that you're a part of, is just start asking these questions. Throw these in a chat box sometime. How is social studies taught in our school? Where is social studies visible beyond our formal curriculum? Sometimes just asking these questions can get the discussion started, and especially if you're looking to share some of the great resources that you've seen today with a wider audience, start with one of these questions in your discussion of, hey, I want to share with you something I saw where social studies might be very visible beyond our immediate school curriculum. Just wanted to share this with you. Where else do you see social studies happening? We encourage you to find and support organizations that have missions focused on social studies education and civic engagement. So just as you've seen from many presenters today, all the wonderful, robust resources that exist online, there are a lot of other organizations as well that are not only partners with them, partners with us at NCSS, but that are very open to and support a mission that encourages students to be actively engaged in civic life and encourages kids to develop their love of inquiry. And so we encourage you to find those organizations, connect with them, link to them, tag them, follow them, so that you can keep up with what they're doing and you can incorporate their instructional resources into your virtual social studies practice. And as a parent and someone who often finds that his children ask a lot of questions that are grounded in social studies every day, such as, where are we exactly? And where are we on a map? And why did this happen the way it happened? Or why do we salute the flag or say the pledge to the flag? Ask a child, any child, back what they're learning in social studies. Ask them a question they have about the world around them. Very often you're going to find the questions kids ask all the time are social studies questions. All questions are ultimately grounded in our understanding of the human world. And so the resources that you've seen today and that you're taking back with you as you're developing a robust virtual social studies program are the very questions that can be based on the very questions kids are asking about the world around them all day. A few other school solutions we can offer to you. NCSS is a proud supporter of the Rho Kappa National Social Studies Honor Society. This is a way to honor student achievement in the social studies, and we offer 2 Honor Society programs. One is for the high school level, and one is at the middle school level. And we just started our junior Rho Kappa middle level program this year. So these are chapters that can be started in your school. Essentially, students have a minimum GPA requirement in high school and take a minimum amount of coursework to qualify. But from there, every chapter in Rho Kappa develops its own unique program to honor student excellence in social studies. These can include opportunities for students to engage in civic life, and especially now more than ever, helping students to develop and engage in a virtual civic social studies life is more critical than ever. So we encourage you to think about a Rho Kappa chapter if you don't have one in your school. If you do have one, we welcome to hear success stories, but also questions about how you're working to structure it online as well. And we're happy to provide resources for you anytime about this. Many of you here are very familiar with our annual conference. We welcome you to our conference each year. This year, our annual conference is our 100th, and you can visit us at socialstudies.org/conference for information on registration and opportunities to get involved and take a look at some of our programming. But we're very proud to feature robust sessions on technology use and application in the social studies classroom every year. And this year, our conference is in Washington, D.C. as our 100th. And our annual conference is December 4th through 6th. And so I'll just conclude by saying I hope you stay in touch. We're on Twitter, we're on social media, find us on LinkedIn, Facebook, and do feel free to connect with us anytime, because we welcome engaging with you in a discussion about the uses of technology and creating a robust online space for social studies. If you are not an NCSS member, or you are an NCSS member and didn't know, we have a community for technology educators called Technology Community. And so we structure a lot of programming, webinars, Twitter chats, other discussions through that community. So we welcome you to also come into our community as a space for sharing resources and practices. And so I'll just conclude at that by saying thank you so much for participating today and for building a nationwide network of social studies educators who are thinking about the potential, the possibilities, the promise of a virtual social education program. There is a lot of promise and opportunity. A lot of it can be scary and overwhelming. Sometimes, as you know, the tools and the resources change faster than we can keep up. But at NCSS, we do believe that we're looking at an opportunity where we can foster that lifelong love of inquiry and foster that sense of lifelong informed civic action by thinking carefully about how we structure the social studies experience in a virtual space. So again, it's a pleasure to be with you tonight, and I thank you very much. And I want to thank Ed Metz and everyone at the U.S. Department of Education for hosting this Social Studies Unconference and bringing everyone together to share promising practices.
Thank you, Larry, so much for your closing remarks. They were so well received. The chat has been just inspirational to watch as you were giving your presentation. Thank you to everyone who attended today for the full 11 hours. It's an incredible testament to your passion about education. Ed, thank you for asking us to be the facilitator of community making. We learned so much from all of you today, and we look forward to continuing this conversation. So look for communications from us over the next week or so, and we will be back in touch very soon. I'm going to give you just the last little election update in terms of who's going to be selected for Biden's running mate. You overwhelmingly picked Kamala Harris with Amy Klobuchar in second. So we'll see if you guys are right. I look forward to seeing you all again soon at the next event that we schedule. Emma, awesome presentation. Happy to be your colleague. Elizabeth, you guys all did a great job. Big hearts out to all of you. Exactly.
Thank you.
And have a wonderful, wonderful evening. Bye.
3 years for Tori and the entire Second Avenue Learning team. You guys are incredible. This has been such a magnificent day. Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you all.
I'm exhausted and I only had to do my own presentation. Watch, you guys had to like moderate all of us. So,
all right. Well, I have to say thank you to my team who just did an extraordinary job. Megan was up till midnight making everything happen, and we were all talking at 6:30 this morning to make sure things went off without a hitch. So
have some wine and take tomorrow off.
Stay safe,
all right.
everyone.
Take
Bye,
care.
Tori.
Bye.
Bye. Congratulations, Tori. Good job.
Great job, Tori.
Bye.